Allegiance, it's getting relegated that they're worried about at this point, so they really need these points.
There's just so much that's on the line here for Allegiance. I mean, especially with all the changes that are being introduced for Season 5, most teams are really trying to do their best to at least remain in the top 6 for right now, not to mention that it makes your pathing to Worlds through the Gauntlet and everything like that also a little bit easier.
That's right. So if you're sitting at the bottom, you got to fight not just up against the Challenger team, but then through every other team that finished out above you when you're going through that gauntlet just to earn the only ticket. There's only one ticket per region to make it back to Super Regional. So ALG trying to make that fight just a little bit easier for him, trying to make that climb a little more realistic, and TFECT trying to hold on to their top 4 spot.
And TFECT, though, with some very interesting bans starting out with the Erlong and Osiris taken away. And I think the mindset here is eliminate some of that early pressure and flexibility options that ALG might have been leaning towards. Weekend does tend to go for those more utility-based gods, but with Artio being locked away for Allegiance, I'd almost anticipate this to be in the solo.
That's right. Try and take some of those options away from Cyclone as well. Erlong Shen and Osiris are both strong solo lane picks, and Cyclone is a really strong player. He used to be one of those best players in the world. I still think he's very good.
Nilma has performed on this Artio before, although it wasn't a successful venture for Allegiance. Still, very talented squad and a lot of possibilities here for this team. And I really like the Ratatoskr selection. Actually opens up a lot of avenues as far as map presence and control could be concerned.
We've seen a lot of good Rat play lately after he's been starting to be picked up a little bit more. Like you said, that global, semi-global pressure that he can have is really strong. The stun he brings out is really good too. So Ratatoskr, I'm excited to see them play. TFECT, though, looking pretty standard with the Raijin, Huyi, and now Kukulin to round out their comp.
The TFECT are really just looking for those all-in teamfight burst potentials. They're going to be able to find that with the Raijin and the Huyi. Both of those ultimates taking out a lot of AoE, so ton of zoning potential already from TFECT.
And it feels like a lot of focus onto TFECT's jungler. I believe Sinosure coming out from ALG with Naja, Nemesis, and Serket banned out already. They rounded out by taking away the Amuz and Cobb, as if to say maybe they don't think that Huyi's going to duo lane.
I gotta say, if there's one person I could think of who loves playing that AMC, Snoopy's certainly one of the first names that comes to mind. And I mean, even at DreamHack, this was actually one of the picks that helped TFECT secure a victory against NRG. And so all around, I would not want to let Snoopy run it back on that AMC just in case it's a Huyi in the mid. Or actually, I take it all back. I just realized it's Huyi anyway, so AMC is just completely out there.
It is a little out there with the Huyi already on the board, but like you said, maybe some Huyi mid possibility. But Thanatos is picked up, so that's a bit of a spicy jungler pick for them. They want to make sure they've got some of that early damage, as Sylvanas and Scylla were those last 2 picks for ALG.
And again, ALG kind of just putting a little bit more emphasis on that early game presence with the draft being very evenly spread. Aside from that, Scylla, I think Scylla might be one of the only gods on that roster so far that might find a little bit of trouble in the laning phase, but the rest of the squad shaping out pretty well.
I agree. Their composition has a lot of synergy, and we saw Scylla, Ratatoskr, and Sylvanas in particular have a lot of synergy earlier on in the Pro League, and those knockups are going to make it easier for them to find their damage, but TFECT are going to be looking for some early presence from Sinosure on that Thanatos, or else it's something that could kind of have a struggle for them in the late game when Scylla's already coming online. As you do see all 5 members of TFECT grouping up in this jungle, trying to catch somebody out.
I would say, though, probably my only complaint about Allegiance's draft is that it is Cyclone Spin on the Artio, and I take that with a grain of salt. I mean it in the way that Cyclone Spin is an incredibly talented mechanical player, and so throwing him on a god that he can't really... He can, like, go even in the laning phase, maybe even find a slight advantage, but it's not going to have the same sort of control effect that he might be able to find with the Bruiser, and that's why I also think it was a really smart banning phase by TFECT, really looking at some of those more pressure-oriented warriors.
I agree with trying to limit what Cyclone Spin can do, and you mentioned earlier that Scylla can kind of struggle through the early game. Cyclone Spin's impact likely will be limited as well. Like you said, Guardians can struggle up against warriors in the solo lane, so they're really going to be relying on Weekend and his impact that he'll be able to have on this Ratatoskr to keep them closer even through the early game until Cyclone can rotate in a little bit better and until Oceans can have a big impact.
Well, so far so good for Oceans and Nilma, able to establish the lane clear first in the mid lane, so they're going to be looking at the right mid Harpies, and Aurora and Hurricane actually trying to contest here.
That is what we're seeing. The crush comes down from Oceans. Looks like they were able to secure those Harpies, so Bit of a win there for ALG. But we're seeing both the Hunters start over here in the duo lane. We've seen a lot of different starts. What do they like here about doing the two Hunters over here, especially with Huyi and Jingwei?
Well, Huyi and Jingwei are both Hunters that fare very well in the early laning phases. Jingwei is just so safe. She has so much survivability in her own kit and kind of just counteracts what Huyi tries to accomplish, which is all that pressure in the boxing. But Huyi is going to be starting out the duo lane as well, just because Snoopy has such efficient clear on those buffs.
And even Jingwei can have some decent clear too, as once again trying to slow down the clear as a roar of Allegiance. But I believe Allegiance were able to take those two. Cyclone spin in the weekend. Going a little bit aggressive here, at least Cyclone was with his position so he could dash back through those minions. And they'll clear first and head back towards those back Harpies.
Probably much more in favor for TFECT. The Thanatos and Kokolin not really looking to let a Ratatasker and Artio have their way as far as farming safely is concerned. Weekend will be able to heal off of those back Harpies thanks to that Boombas, but he's still got to be really careful about cutting those corners, considering that Sino might be waiting right around them.
Now, does Sinosure have to get some kills early for this Thanatos pick to work out for him?
Not necessarily. All he really needs to do is set up his team in a manner where they're going to be able to follow up with damage, or I would ideally imagine a Thanatos to be looking for those early picks, get that momentum going as fast as possible, but sometimes it doesn't always work out the way you imagined.
That's right. The stun from Thanatos is strong enough on its own sometimes when followed up with someone like Raijin, which Hurwind is piloting, or with some good damage from Snoopy as well. So he doesn't necessarily have to get a bunch of kills as long as he's able to get in and set up for the rest of his team. As you do see Kiki and Sinosure both already hitting level 5, a little bit ahead of Weekend.
Aurora, though, still sitting at level 3. Nilma with a slight advantage here. And it is going to be Allegiance's Fire Elemental, so the global farm has been pretty evenly distributed between these two teams.
It does look like they've been doing a good job staying even here so far for Allegiance, despite having maybe a couple pieces that don't thrive in the early game. They're still sticking even with TFECT so far, who are, you know, maybe like a little bit of gold ahead, really a negligible amount. But Snoopy does have Met Yankee pushed under his tower.
This is kind of what you expect, though, from a Huyi. Huyi's always going to have the laning advantage directly just because he does a little bit more damage than a Jingwei. And with Snoopy expending his ultimate just to clear that wave even faster, I wouldn't be surprised if he finished. Yep, there it is. He's just going to finish off those Warrior Tabi instead of electing to try and start up the Devourer's Gauntlets like what we saw earlier today from Jermaine.
Recognizing that he's got to keep up with this build in Jingwei, who's got a much easier time backing, finishing off her items, and coming back in. And it was perfect timing, too. It looks like his red and purple buff are just about to spawn as he is there ready to pick that red buff up. And Met Yankee picking his up, but hasn't backed just yet. So he'll have to do that once he finishes clearing.
Met Yankee is in a very comfortable position right now on the Jingwei. Really nobody to try and pressure him out of his laning phase. Sino would probably be the closest one to that, piloting the Thanatos. But at the same time, if he goes to pressure out dual lane, he's got to be concerned that it leaves his solo laner wide open to a gank as well.
We are seeing some pressure as Sinosure and Hurriwind kind of rotate over towards this left side just to be ready for these mid Harpies. Neyrima not quite in position, so I think they're likely just going to give this rotation of those mid Harpies back up to TFECT, who take them without any kind of contest or anything like that. But Taco, I've been wanting to ask here specifically about not just about Sinosure in particular, but about the impact that we're going to see Aurora have compared to Neyrima on this Sylvanas. Which one would you rather have going into the late game?
Oh, by far, Geb. Geb is just so great whenever it comes to late game team fights compared to Sylvanas, but this is an early game team fight. Hurriwind already being focused out upon, forced into his own ultimate, trying to get away from Weekend, but the damage is too much. That's Ratatasker, first blood.
That's a big kill coming out for Weekend already. The blink from Neyrima was perfect. Right when we started talking about him, he blinks on in and goes into action to Hurriwind, who goes up into his ultimate and just didn't have any kind of response. That was the global pressure from Ratatasker and a strong blink Ratatera from Neyrima.
And TFECT already getting a little bit of a taste out of what this mobility comp can do. I think that the Thanatos selection for TFECT was really smart to try and compensate for that, because they're going to need somebody who has the same kind of chase down potential as Weekend.
And we talked a little bit about how there was plenty of setup for Oceans, as Neyrima is actually getting very low in the mid lane and gets taken down by Sinosure. So that's an important return kill on their jungler, so now he won't fall behind Weekend.
And again, that's just one of the downfalls of Sylvanas. Can be great for starting things off, but Soon enough, you are just a tree, and he got a little bit lost in the forest there, but Sino was ready to chop him down.
Yeah, Sino sure went lumberjack just now and cut down the tree, but well, that's actually a cactus. I guess those aren't lumberjacks if they cut down cactuses. So.
From the land of my people. That's enough to be said.
That's right. Taco might be a little more familiar, but I want to talk about the setup for Oceans in particular. That's what we saw really help set up that first kill under Hurrywin, the knockup from Neyrma into the I'm a Monster from Oceans.
Well, considering that Aurora's Cataclysm is on cooldown, I'd imagine that was the ability that was used in order to catch out Neyrma. It seemed as though he started that off probably a little bit more towards that front edge of the tower line of the mid lane, and when you're that far up as Sylvanas with the lack of mobility and not having his ultimate for that get out of jail card, it's just easy to lock him down.
He did not have that Wrath of Terror available as he committed it just a little bit earlier in that last fight. But TFECT are the ones here one more time for that spawn of the Fire Elementals. And after that 1-for-1 trade, everything's still looking pretty even in the gold department. Maybe like 300 or 400 up, but again, that's really not very much. Even though it is kind of impressive that Legions would have gotten that first gold bounty and they're still a little bit behind.
It's actually in favor of TFECT because exactly like you just mentioned, Legions should have the first blood bounty in their favor, but instead they're trailing by just about 300-400 gold to TFECT.
So once again, that's coming up big for him. But what's going to be coming up big for him here? Take a look at what Cyclone Spin's gone within the soul lane, as Neyrma might be in trouble, getting taunted in by Hurrywin. Oceans, though, went up into the ultimate. The I'm a Monster. Cataclysm going from Geb as well, and Cynosure was ready to follow up with the execute. Gets the first kill of this engagement, but Weaken doesn't look ready to stop just yet.
An excellent silence by Thanatos there, preventing Met Yankee from dashing forward on the Jing Wei. He was going to look to try and spam some auto attacks off with that increased attack speed from the knockup, but man, that silence pretty much just stops that engagement entirely. The Scythe as well, also half-healthing Oceans, forcing him to back out of that engagement. It was just really well executed by TFECT, and the patience as well by Cynosure, waiting until Neyrma was in that execute range before going down.
And perfect kill from him. Now he's up 2-0-0. We were saying earlier, DeSantos want those early kills, where now we'll get to see what Cynosure does when he's got that 2-0-0 start to help him out a little bit. Already has, looks like the Talaria boots to help him get around the map even faster. Going to be going into some pin now to finish that off, so he can start really swinging.
One of the benefits of Thanatos is that he doesn't need a whole lot of pen, considering that his kit already provides him with enough shred. He gets the increased penetration already, so it's just a lot easier to kind of focus more on the mobility factor.
And there's a lot of damage coming off his Scythe as well, that first ability. So he's going to have plenty of power, like you said, just within that kit. Obviously, the execute doesn't really need the power as well as Kiki. So Cheeky gets a knock-up on the two members. Weaken already very low, but getting some wisp from Neyrma, who looks like he might be in trouble. Hurrywin going for pure damage. Wrath of Terror comes out, and Cynosure gets another kill onto the Thanatos. And Kiki So Cheeky looking to give Oceans more trouble.
It doesn't look like Kiki's done just yet. Oceans actually, I don't think he has his dash to get away. It just now came up, but Kiki's already got him so low, he might look to dive in the T2 tower, but instead it's going to be Weaken and Cyclone helping Oceans turn that one around. Kiki way too greedy, but TFECT's on the Gold Fury.
TFECT recognized that they all were chasing Kiki. You might have thought he just went too aggressive. I think he was just trying to keep him busy. Cynosure secures the Gold Fury for TFECT, and Met Yankee has to back off. So even though it was a 1-for-1, TFECT come out ahead.
And again, that's just great execution by TFECT, spreading allegiance out across the map, making sure that no more than one member could really be looking to defend at a time.
I'm sure Kiki was in those comms saying, guys, I got 3 people busy. I've got Oceans up in his ultimate, Cyclone Spinner, and the rest are here to try and help out too. Take that Gold Fury, take that fight. If I can get the kill, great. But more importantly, let's get this objective. Now TFECT have moved it out to about an 1,100 or so gold lead in their favor off the back of that objective. Again, at 10 minutes in, Gold Fury is not worth a whole lot, but being able to get it taken off the map and start building on a lead, and most importantly, Cynosure sitting 3-0-0.
You can only imagine how many points he already has put into that second ability, Scent of Death, and you're just keeping an eye on just how much the penetration is going to work to his advantage, the way that that continuously scales, right around reaching the 3rd, 4th, and having that 25 and 30, it just becomes so potent for an ability.
Getting some aggressive wording down now are Aurora and Cynosure. This is where you start to see them take that small lead that they have and try and push it onto the map, try and get some aggression out of it. Luckily, though, no one was really around for a lead, and so they have to back off. But where's going to be their next push that they're looking to make from TFECT?
I wouldn't be surprised to see a Portal Demon aggression start to be a look towards. It's the tower, though, in solo lane is already being fairly poked out on Kiki's end, so he's got to be really careful there, though, that Allegiance doesn't try to all-in him and secure his tower. Speaking of all-in, Neilmaw one more time getting put up on the scoreboard.
And Oceans follows up with his I'm a Monster as well. That was off the mark, so now that won't be available as TFECT take that fight 1-for-1. Really not even a fight, just a pick in mid lane, and all Oceans could do was watch as TFECT also take the Oracles and continue to exert control over the map.
Neilmaw's just having such a difficult time trying to find the right way for pathing around TFECT. Even the slightest bit out of range from this tower line is seeming to lead to his demise, so he's just going to have to be even more careful than before because he's starting to fall pretty far behind already.
Maybe Sinosure is just thirsty. Isn't there supposed to be a little bit of water in cactuses if you cut them open?
Well, it depends on the kind of cactus, I believe, but...
Look at that. He looks like he's got plenty of...
He's already got a dude on top of it, slurping it all up, though.
Oh, I guess that's true.
That's the main thing about it, and...
Poor Sino. He won't be able to get anything to drink, but... Really, it's Neyrima, as you said, who's having a rough time. All the deaths so far on him. 2 levels behind Aurora, and he's going to have a difficult time being any kind of front line for him. And just as you said, that Tier 1 tower was the call as Cyclone Spin takes it.
That was really well played by Cyclone. Just has a little bit more sustain in this lane alongside of that blue buff around him. So for TFECT, it's going to be all about seeing what kind of pressure they can maintain in the mid lane, because without that T1 in solo, that will make things a little bit more difficult for them should they choose to try and aggress onto the Portal Demon.
They won't have as much safety to fall back onto in that right side, but take a look at Herwin. Talking about safety, he's chosen to go with the Doom Orb, putting a little bit more of a target on his head. If he does fall, he would lose some of the stacks off it, and that's a good part of where a lot of his power is going to be coming from.
But Aurora has been by Herwin's side this entire game so far, and I can't imagine that change. Speaking of which, Aurora going in, catching out 2 with that Cataclysm. Sino following up afterwards. Neilmaw with a great ult, knocking them all up, but Aurora is just going to use that Geb shield to chalk out that I'm a Monster.
One more time, though, the I'm a Monster comes out onto Aurora. I don't know if that's the best target for Oceans onto that tanky Geb, but here comes Weekend to defend his speed, but Herwind and Aurora are both here, knocking him up and interrupting his damage. Kiki keeping away from the team fight. Cyclone's been doing a good job zoning him away, and I think the speed buff actually was successfully taken by Sino.
And Sino is already back to a little bit more than half health. Weekend actually getting aggressed on. Snoopy's made the rotation all the way over from the dual lane. Thorns won't save you here, Weekend, as Snoopy gets his first kill of the game.
Just didn't want Neyrima to feel bad. Now someone else has some deaths as well. Cyclone Spin Aegis came out to avoid the sun's damage. Now he's dashing, but he gets interrupted by Herwin. That sets up the kill, which goes to Aurora, who ends up securing that one. Mad Yankee has to run away, and as you said, Portal Demon is going to be the next call.
And this is kind of what's been happening to ALG all split. It's just one temporary lapse in judgment. It just seems to everything else fall apart immediately after. It was such an unfortunate team fight. This game was relatively even. It's still not completely out of control, but allowing TFECT to gain so much off of just a couple of picks is actually pretty scary.
As you said, the gold lead only about 2,400, so not to a level where ALG can't fight back into it. But now we're getting to the point where TFECT can start to pull objectives, force ALG into a position they don't want to be in, and take the fight with a little bit more money put into their items. Just maybe a few more items finished off, maybe a little bit more vision that goes into their favor. And look at this. I mean, Neyrima, he won't have another relic for 3 more levels. Aurora able to blink and provide sprint for his team. It's just rough trying to fight into it.
And that's one of the risky factors involved with going to Sylvanas. Sure, you can have a great laning phase and a great start for the first couple of levels, but when you have a team that is so insistent on keeping a Sylvanas trapped, I mean, TFECT certainly has a draft to do it.
They absolutely do. Sinosure in particular been doing a good job of it, sitting 3-0-2, has that Jotun's Wrath finished off to provide him excellent cooldown, and now we see them trying to bait in, just as we were saying, trying to bait in ALG. Snoopy, though, if no one comes, he's happy to just take this objective down for free. Crush off the mark. Gold Fury already down to half health, and TFECT playing very patient.
And TFECT can't fully commit to the Gold Fury. Ocean still has that I'm a Monster available, so if TFECT get that goal just a little bit too low, it's only going to be ALG thanking them. But speaking of which, Ocean actually just used his ultimate. Hurricane actually went up into the Taiko drums as well. Worried that Weekend was going to be crashing down on top of him.
And that looked like it was his plan. Through the Cosmos has been committed by Weekend at this point in the match, so that'll no longer be available for him. Cynosure does get rooted out, and he has to back off. But now they're looking to actually keep going in. Aurora knocks up Weekend, just to create a little bit of space for Cynosure, who did have to use his beats.
Cyno, no trust for Aurora's Geb Shield cleanse. I think that's more reflexive than actually not having any trust. It's just always fun to poke a little bit of fun.
That's right, yeah. Just got maybe a little bit too much instinct to hit that beads, but that can be a little bit of trouble sometimes when you're with Geb, really getting the maximum efficiency, as Weekend and Neyrima actually looking to rotate in on the Snoopy, who still has that leap available, and he does use it to get away from the root and the pluck just a little bit too early from Neyrima.
I like the attempt at the style prediction by Neilma there, but speaking of which, Aurora, though, looking to trap down Neilma one more time, trapped underneath those suns, and Snoopy, freest in hands of all time in that slow.
Stop me if you've heard this one before, but once again, Neyrima sent back to base, 0-5-1. Trifecta up 7 kills to 2. Again, they still have about a 2,000 or so gold lead, but they're looking to extend it at 17 minutes with this Gold Fury. Met Yankin and Weekend are here, and the Raiju's going through, but Cynosure is up in the air, and he's looking to come down. Not anyone with an execute threshold, but just for the stun. Actually, the Gold Fury gets executed.
No need to even look for the engagement by Cynosure. Just confident that his team will be able to secure that one. Everybody else from Allegiance kind of just too hesitant to go forward, and for good reason. It was a 4v5 scenario, and they're already at the disadvantage. It's probably better off just letting that Gold Fury go.
Plus, Cyno preemptively uses the ultimate there. If anyone does step up and try and contest, as Met Yankee might be in some trouble here, he can crash down on him with the stun. Met Yankee, though, uses the beads to try and keep the fight going, but Snoopy takes him down before he can even get up into the air. Weekend, though, ready to come crashing in.
Weekend's trying to make something happen, using that through the Cosmos to get across the map in time, but there's no one left to go on. Even with Nilma having made the rotation, Snoopy's level 18, Weekend is only 14. There is no way he can try and battle into this Huyi.
He backs off. He recognizes that they got to give up Made Yankee for free on that duo lane side. Strong rotation from Cynosure to help out Snoopy. I don't believe they even committed any ultimates or any other cooldowns like that into that kill. They just were able to pick up Met Yankee, was a little bit too far forward. Now the Portal Demon's back up again, and Trifecta have a little bit of time where they don't have to worry about that Gold Fury, and they can start to look for it.
With the creep surrounding him, Met Yankee seemed to feel a little bit confident there that he might be able to walk away with at least a one-for-one trade.
Yeah.
That SMITE took quick care of his health bar, though, and I don't imagine him trying to look for that again. Probably just going to ult a little bit sooner. It just always unlucky anytime those sort of situations happen.
I think he was not expecting that surprise damage, because he commits the beads not to try and escape, but to try and get more damage out in that team fight. So as you said, he really felt he could get the one-for-one trade there. But now he'll recognize he can't. Good stun to interrupt the dash. Forces out the Aegis from Met Yankee, using the stuns to drop the slow. But Met Yankee still had his ultimate available, and he's forced out one more time.
One of the risks involved with Jingwei, you've got a great escape off of that knockout possibility, but you've always got to be careful of the Ricochet following shortly after.
And you always say it's a good matchup, even like Shibalanke. That's something that Huyi does. He can interrupt those dashes from you, and then you're stuck out on an island up against the Huyi, who's a little bit ahead right now. He's 3-0-2, has those Kinsais all the way finished off. So actually a full item ahead right now over Met Yankee, or almost a full item, as Cyclone spins in a lot of trouble this time. Aegis was not enough to save him from Cynosure. Right when it falls off, he came crashing down. Thor's keeps Weekend alive for the moment, but the real target is the Portal Demon.
And not only that, Trifecta got a free kill out of it as well. Cyclone used his active, but the Aegis did not make a difference. Cyno was just too easily able to wait that one out, and now Allegiance just falling steadily more and more behind. This has just been an incredibly difficult game for them so far.
This has been the slow bleed here, Taco. Trifecta have been patient with their calls. They haven't given anything away that they didn't need to. Maybe we saw a little bit too much upwards play a little bit earlier in the game, but since then, Trifecta have been doing a good job making sure they force Elite into a bad fight, take the kill, and then they take the objective. That's why they're up about 5,000 gold now, 20 minutes in.
I wouldn't even say that it's a flaw with Oceans not being able to deal enough damage on that Scylla. He's the same level as Hurrywin, but they do seem to have two completely different power spikes, and that's partially because of the fact that Hurrywin just got away with getting a fully stacked Doom Orb online.
And Oceans hasn't had a chance to follow up on a lot of setup. It's usually Neyrima who's the one that's getting deleted, and he's been forced to put a lot of ultimates into the likes of Aurora or Kiki, and they're just not as impactful as they would be if you could get him onto Hurrywin or Snoopy, who I'm sure he'd rather hit as TFECT take that mid-tier 1.
Tier 1 just didn't have enough health for Allegiance to feel comfortable standing underneath it any longer. And for good reason. With the way that TFECT have been making their engagements all game so far, there's no reason to not expect them to look for a tower dive there.
Now, you brought up the Doom Orb. Should Weekend be putting more pressure onto Hurrywin?
Weekend can't afford to. There's really just no opening for Weekend to try and ult Hurrywin on that backline because, like I mentioned earlier, Aurora has just done an excellent job at placing himself right next to Hurrywin. Every single engagement so far, it has actually just been Hurrywin ensuring that his Raijin is 100% safe because that's what you need to do. If you know that your mid laner wants to build a Doom Orb, even if he's going to go for a Dynasty play him afterwards to provide himself with a little bit more survivability, having that Geb to ensure his safety is making all the difference.
Gab providing a lot of safety for the rest of the team, making it even harder for ALG to fight into this one. About 15 seconds now before the Gold Fury respawns. We see 4 Sentry Wards in the inventory of TFECT. They're ready to start establishing some vision control on the map so they can force another fight.
And one more time, Aurora actually catching 3 with the Cataclysm there, looking to roll away, but Weekend's able to catch the rollout. Nemo with a great pullback in. However, Aurora, he's so damn tanky, he's still on the run. Everybody from TFECT has made their rotation, and he's going to get out.
Taiko drums were good to force back all the members of ALG. Now Sinosure coming in, putting tons of damage into Neyrima with that Death Scythe. Weekend, though, the one that might end up paying for it with his life. Several members are low. You can see the skulls over them as Sinosure lands on Neyrima and cleans up the first fight. Med Yankee now having to ult away from Kiki so cheeky as Weekend falls and gives Sino the double kill.
Hurrywin making it 3-0 so far, taking out Met Yankee, who was just trying to find some kind of return kill for his team and escape with his life. Sinosure not done just yet, looking to find Oceans, but he's able to back in time, and Gold Fury, it's respawn.
3 members die for nothing on TFECT. They also get to take the Gold Fury as well. No chance of any contest from ALG. That gold lead now getting closer to 8,000, getting closer to unmanageable as Sinosure continuing to come up big on this Thanatos 6-0-3.
There's still some possibility for Allegiance to bring this one back, although it's going to require maximum team effort, and I'm just not certain that TFECT is going to make enough mistakes to really allow that to happen.
It is getting to the point now where ALG would probably need an overcommit or a mistake from TFECT to get back into this. Look at how Sinosure's chunking Oceans down to 50 HP. It's rough.
That hurt me to watch.
It's rough.
You just got to feel for Oceans there. Just level 15 solo against the level 18 Thanatos 6-0-3, by the way, for Sinosure, and this is just disgusting, the amount of damage he's putting out now.
And take a look at these player damage charts. Oceans is all the way down at the bottom, even below Neyrima on Sylvanas. He just hasn't had a chance yet to have an impact in this game, Taco.
And again, I don't really think it's been any sort of gross outplay or Allegiance messing up horribly. It's really just been an unfortunate montage of Neilma just getting fully taken advantage of. TFECT, they looked for the one opening that they had early on, and it was just focusing on the tree.
And that's what they did. They effectively farmed Neyrima. It felt like this game 0-6-1 is where he sits right now, almost perfectly mirroring Sinosure, who's 6-0-3. Med Yankee once again in trouble in the duo lane as Snoopy continues to dominate the matchup. He cleans Med Yankee up with the shot in the Aegis, keeps him alive while Hurrywin rotates in to try and keep him going. Neyrima might be in trouble one more time. Aurora comes in with the Cataclysm. Neyrima with the Taiko drums. Neyrima back to base. 2 for 0.
I think that he just got a little bit baited there as well by his team. It looked as though Weekend wanted to try and commit onto Snoopy for a moment, and during that time period, Nilma had already started to venture over to try and cut Snoopy off. Unfortunately, he wasn't the only one rotating.
And this is more of an example of TFECT's strategy than Neyrima playing really poorly, as Oceans is already very low under the pressure from Sinosure and Kiki one more time. Clearly, it's been a focused targeting onto this Sylvanas pick. Fire Giant down below half health. There's no way for ALG to contest this one, Taco. It's going to go to him for free. Do you feel like that's all it's been this far, or is Neyrima just struggling?
This has just been, again, just an unfortunate pick, I would say, more than anything else. I can understand the mentality behind it. I do not fault Nilma or even ALG in the slightest for it. It just happens to be that TFECT got the outdraft here. That's really what it comes down to.
And this Thanatos pick for Sinosure, it's a scary one. It's not just that he's playing it so well here, but yeah, no kind of healing impact coming out from Ardio there. You saw our cameraman pointing out Cyclone Spin's low heal numbers, so he hasn't been able to do much with that aspect of his kit. But this is something that could be scary going forward. You got to worry about Sinos Thanatos now.
Well, the other issue as well for Allegiance is there's just nobody to deal damage. You expected that damage to come from Met Yankee. He's unable to get the itemization online that he would need to really have a crazy impact against TFECT.
As you said, Mad Yankee is struggling to, or is at least trying to provide some damage, but really missing out on some of that magic damage from Oceans as well. That big AoE team fight damage could be helping out a lot in these kills. But they have also been in a lot of pick situations where there really hasn't even been much chance for a counter fight or a counter initiation. They clean up Nairmon back out clean.
I don't think there's been a single moment where Allegiance has had a pure 5v5 fight happen. It's basically just been, like you said, TFECT forcing out one or two members from ALG, and then just when everybody's so disjointed from each other, there's really not much left to try and battle against. I think for this one, though, ALG are more than likely able to understand their mistakes, and you just got to hope that they can reflect upon it and build on it in the next drafting game.
And the best engagement we saw from ALG was like 5 minutes in, where Neyruma blinks in on top of Heroin, knocks him up into the damage from Oceans, and then Weekend drops on in and is able to clean it up. But they haven't been able to use their ultimates in that order or in that kind of situation since then at all.
It hasn't happened since that very first kill onto Hurrywin. That was really the one time we saw just how scary their draft could be, but they never really were able to repeat that.
TFECT didn't give him a chance. Yeah, TFECT have been the ones in the driver's seat, it felt like, ever since then. And now it is one more time. Aurora blinks in Cataclysm on the 2 members, but Aurora takes a lot of damage, has to shield himself. Sinosure, though, up in the air looking for Neyruma. One more time, cleans him up. Weekend now trying to go into the back line, but just not enough damage. Kiki soaking up plenty of the damage from the tower.
That creep just say Weekend's life, but the same might not be able to be said for Cyclone Spin. Still 5 members strong here for TFECT. Sino actually looking for the blink in onto Met Yankee, forcing out the Aegis, and I believe the Purification Beads as well.
And mid lane Phoenix now is under duress. Mid lane Phoenix now is gone as TFECT take the tier 2 and the Phoenix, and they look ready to group up and force a little bit more. The initiation from Aurora has been great this game. Allegiance can't respond to it, Taco.
And Gold Fury, I believe, is available for TFECT to just make things all the worse for ALG, not allowing Allegiance any sort of chance to try and come back in with some farm.
And this is more about taking it away from them than them getting that gold at this point, as they do near getting 6 slotted. 17,000 is the gold lead. It's looking, as a dog might say, a little rough, Taco, for Allegiance. They might need to start thinking about, do they need to do something better in picks and bans? Do they need something a little better for Neyruma so he can't get picked out in game 2?
19,000 experience disparity between these two teams is still probably the most brutal portion of this entire game. Although a couple members of Allegiance are approaching level 20. They'll be there fairly soon. For Met Yankee, though, he's really just had such a difficult time because of how far ahead TFECT were able to get early on. It's never easy for a carry to try and help his team out in the way that you'd ideally want to.
And you saw our cameraman pointing out those 3 unstacked Hide of the Urchins. All 3 are finished. No stacks on any one of them. Allegiance, when you're behind, this item just doesn't do nearly as much for you as he does when you're already winning, like with Aurora, who's got 7 stacks on it. Feels comfortable going for that Void Stone and the Wing Blade because he knows he has a little bit more protection helping him out from that Hide of the Urchin.
Well, again, this kind of just relays back to the whole Met Yankee being the only form of damage really available for Allegiance. Oceans has never really had the opportunity to go in. He's constantly being pressured out by either Sinosure or Aurora. And I say Aurora because Aurora's got the Cataclysm set up, and anytime a mage is in the mix of all that, they just have to run away. And so for Weekend to be building so bruiser-oriented, we see a lot of success happening for Captain Twig with this because his team is dealing damage, but for Weekend, he doesn't have that leisure. He needed a little bit more damage online to try and make something happen with his setup, and it's just kind of, again, falling apart for ALG.
Tier 2 tower in right falls as Fire Giant now respawning, breaking free from those chains one more time. They'll be free to take this one without any kind of contest from ALG, who will be looking to try and take their next bite on their Phoenix and make some kind of base defense against TFECT, who are miles ahead 30 minutes here into this contest. But this is a little bit more about how long these normally go as opposed to that 19-minute surrender we saw last set.
Well, hopefully with all 5 members of ALG back to base, they know that they're going to have fire creeps coming down the mid lane. They might be able to get a successful defense on this right-hand Phoenix. Seems to be the Phoenix of focus for TFECT, so time to see whether or not ALG can try and bounce back.
And they know what the initiation is going to be from TFECT. It's been the Blink Cataclysm from Aurora every single time. Then the follow-up from Cynosure to execute who's ever lowest. So ALG need to make sure they're spread out. They can't get Cataclysm on the too many important members all at once. Cynosure looking for the Death Sight and the Cyclone Spin, but just a little bit off as they wait for another minion wave to get some more. Weekend was up in the air, actually.
Weekend was going on Kiki, and so was Met Yankee. The Thorns coming out, though, for Kiki means that Weekend's probably going to get trapped out now by Cynosure, trying to get away from that execute threshold. He does have the jukes coming through. Not sure what Cyno's going to do just yet, though. He elects to stay with his team. Doesn't want to dive that deep. His team already got the right-hand Phoenix, and that's all TFECT wanted.
They got what they really wanted, as you said, with that structure. Now comes the Blink Cataclysm on the Cyclone Spin, the knock-up with the follow-up damage. One more time, Oceans uses the I'm a Monster, but it's into the Aegis of Snoopy, so no damage is taken. Now the 5 members of TFECT can group back up without having to worry about the big ultimate from Oceans.
Talk about some discipline by Cyno there. Not going in on the Titan room, even though he probably could have gotten away with it. He just chooses not to put his team in that sort of position where they might potentially lose him, and then if they lose him, maybe it's another member that goes down trying to get in there to peel for him. It's very easy for it to have a dominoes effect.
They didn't need it. They recognized they didn't need that kill. Instead, what they're looking for is Cyclone Spin. Stun comes out from Snoopy. Kill comes out from Snoopy as he's now sitting 5-0-6, also having an excellent game. Now the Phoenix on this left-hand side appears to be the call for him into the Titan room. They might be going next. Aurora gets pulled into a lot of damage, actually, so a good play as Met Yankee ends up cleaning up that one, and it might be enough for finally TFECT to go ahead and back off.
And Met Yankee, he's been looking for that all game long, finally able to connect with it, left alone for just a couple of moments. It's really all it takes to take down Aurora. He does have his Pen Shred build online, so it will be pretty effective now. It's just one of those circumstances of too little, too late, I feel.
That's right. Aurora's life traded for 3 Phoenixes, as well as all the towers that stood in front of them, so TFECT happy to make that trade, now cleaning up the Portal Demon, giving themselves a quick way back to the midway point of the map as they go back, spend what gold remaining they have on maybe more items, maybe on more potions, get some more rewards, so they can come back in and clean this game up as Allegiance's Titan room is fully exposed.
In all honesty, TFECT could have even potentially looked for the end there, and not purely off of just going onto the Titan as much as it is just looking for the picks. But they'd rather play it safe, maybe even looking to wait out for the next FG. If anything, they're certainly just trying to push down the waves as much as possible, really trying to keep those creeps as close to the Titan room of Allegiance as possible.
And I'm not surprised TFECT are playing this one cautiously, Taco. They're 4th seeded right now. If they give up any extra points that they should have had, they have a chance of being in the gauntlet instead of going straight through to Super Regionals. So TFECT instead trying to secure every point that they can, playing it, yes, maybe a little more cautiously, but this way that they don't give up their shot to go to Super Regionals, and it looks like they could end up against D United.
Can't disagree with you on that one. Snoopy, however, he's ready to go. So is the rest of TFECT. They've all been pretty on fire this match, so
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised to just see them try an all-in dump on the Titan.
That's likely going to be the call from them. There's no Phoenixes that they have to worry about. Hurwin, as well as Snoopy dropping his sons on top of the Titan. There's no way to counter that one, no way to block it. That's damage they'll be able to get a put right on it. Now it's Met Yankee, though, who's getting blown up right away. Hurwin takes down Oceans, and there's that damage coming on top of the Titan. It was over, well, it feels like before it even started.